Hello, everybody. My name is Ajay Swami. I'm a product leader with Amazon Web Services, where I manage a portfolio of AWS solutions. Today, I'll be talking to you about the working backwards and the PRFAQ methodology that myself and broadly product people at Amazon use to launch a new product offering. I'm glad to be here with you today, and hopefully this webinar is useful, just as it's been useful to me over the course of my career at Amazon. A couple of notes. My apologies, my video is currently not working, but nonetheless, I can see and hear you, and I'll be able to field any questions later on. So what is the agenda for today? We're going to go through 4 topics. I'll walk you through what is working backwards. What does it mean? Number 2, what is the PRFAQ? How do you use it? How do you write it? What are some of the key elements of a PRFAQ? Number 3, I'll talk through across all of the slides. I'll talk through how this particular PRFAQ artifact can be used to drive consensus and alignment, stakeholder alignment, and peer alignment, and even customer alignment to a certain degree, to ensure that people can rally behind you when you're trying to propose a new idea or a new product. And then finally, we'll end with takeaways. 2 points. Number 1, this is not a webinar about how you manage the build of your product or how you use Agile, whether it's Scrum or Kanban, to actually build out your products. However, this webinar will be useful to you if you're interested in learning about a proven framework a product-centric company like Amazon uses to validate an idea and build new products. It'll give you a new framework to ensure that you're asking the right questions, you're digging deep, and you're covering gaps to make sure that you are addressing the right target problem set. And then number 3, you want to make sure you build a product and reduce the risk of product market fit and reduce adoption risk and make sure it is a successful venture. So let's dive right in. What is working backwards? In a nutshell, working backwards is building a product or a program or whatever it is that you're trying to do from the perspective of the end customer. Everything that you do, every action, every artifact that a customer might use is informed by the customer problem. And there are 5 key dimensions when you think about working backwards. So let's go through them one by one. Number 1 is listen. I think it's pretty intuitive, right? You want to learn as much about the customer as possible. You want to listen to your customer. Who is your customer? What do you know about them? Utilize your UX teams. Utilize your UX design, UX research teams. Seek out customer feedback and anecdotes. Directly talk with them, and gather customer insights that will actually give you a picture about who the customer is and what their problem sets are, what their needs are, what their aggravations and their frustrations are, and what they want to solve for. Number 2, what do you do with all this data? Synthesize this information. As you start to look at all of the key different data sets, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, you'll start to see themes and trends emerging. And keep an eye out for that. And from that, you can probably start to form some high-level epics, or I should say sets of problems that actually sort of blend together, and you can almost form stories around them in terms of what the customers are actually facing. This will allow you to actually think very deeply about what is the prevailing customer problem and what was the data that actually backed this up. Number 3, invent. And this is the fun part, right? Based on what you define in terms of the customer problems and the customer problem themes or trends, what is the solution? and what is the right solution to address the customer's need versus other alternatives. And in this particular stage, you don't have to necessarily worry about any constraints, whether it's cost or resource driven. Just be open, think out of the box, and think about all of the different solutions that can actually make a customer happy or bring joy to the customer when they think about when you think about trying to address that problem. Number 4 is refine. Think about what is the E2E customer experience. What are the key customer benefits that you are bringing to the table? Think about how the customer experience unfolds for the customer. What is it like from a real life perspective for the customer to engage with your product, or whether it's a hardware product or a software product? What does it feel like? What do they need to do to actually interact with your product? Is it easy? Is it hard? Is there a learning curve? Think about all of those facets. And number 5 is, you'll need to think about how you define and measure success. What needs to actually happen after you launch your idea and deliver customer delight? How do you know that you're actually solving for that problem? Define what constitutes success. Define what metrics are. This will sort of help you think about how you want to think about the next iteration of your product. So let's talk about the second phase, I should say the second part of working backwards. So what are some of the actions that you need to take in each of the dimensions that I identified before? Number 1, in the listen phase, you want to work directly on gaining the customer perspective, collect data, analyzing data. You can also explore third-party market research studies, either by consulting companies or just sort of putting out your own needs or putting out your own a requirement for a study to be done. Number 3, you can also put yourself in your customer's shoes. You can do what's called a Gemba walk. Just Gemba walk is essentially trying to put yourself in the customer's shoes and walking the value stream and trying to understand where there are pain points, where there's waste, and trying to see if any of these can actually lend itself to a solution. Number 2, define. Define the customer, create personas. These are fictional, but distilled essences of real users. They have behaviors. These users have behaviors. They have frustrations. They want to accomplish things. What is actually restricting them from doing those? Review and prioritize the problems. A customer can have multiple problems, but you want to focus on the most impactful problems. When you build out an MVP, you're not going to be able to solve for all of those problems. So you want to solve for the biggest chunk of that problem that will actually build future stickiness with the customer. You can also utilize things like a customer journey map to map out your customer's end-to-end value stream journey. And that can also help you validate your problem. Number 3 is invent. As you see on the slide, product management is not a one-person job. It's not your job to actually just come up with the idea and run with it. It's your job, however, to bring people together, get stakeholder consensus, and get feedback. Use how might we statements to actually try and understand how your solution or a product might bring joy and solve for a customer need, and then actually provide tangible benefits. And also think about how you want to prioritize the solutions to that problem that you've identified that you want to solve for. There's different ways you can prioritize them in terms of cost, the difficulty or the complexity from a technical implementation, etc. Number 4 is the PRFAQ. This is the fundamental artifact that'll define your product strategy, your business case, and stakeholder alignment. This is what I use. This is what most product people at Amazon use in order to actually put together an idea for a future product or a big upgrade to an existing product. With this, you'll be able to define your minimum awesome products. You can also utilize this and create storyboards during the refine phase. You can also create storyboards, wireframes, and other prototypes. Lastly, think about usability testing and feedback. You don't have to wait to launch the product to get feedback. You can have prototypes, you can conduct focus groups, it can actually get very early feedback, and this can actually tell you whether you're on the right track or if you need to go back to the drawing board. So what's the PRFAQ? The PRFAQ is a document that sets the vision for your customer-centric idea. It sort of helps you think through what you want to do with your idea before you build it. It helps you sort of think through the investment hypothesis, or the investment thesis, I should say, that'll help you sort of put together all of the details that can convince your stakeholders and your leadership to actually rally behind you in order to actually build this product. The way I like to think about this is that this is sort of your master documents or your source that you can refer back to whenever you run into challenges during your product build out. So you can always go back to this PRFAQ and go back and say, hey, look, this is my customer-centric vision. This is the customer problem that I've identified. And it'll always sort of level set and ground you if you ever feel lost or if you ever feel confused during that build process. So what's in the PR? PR, the press release, is really a 1 to 2 pager that describes the solution using simple, crisp, compelling, customer-centric language. It talks about how a customer might experience the product through their experience and through their feelings. It mimics a real-world press release. So, for example, you might have seen press releases coming from Business Wire or TechCrunch. It is very similar to that. It's meant to mimic the real-world scenario because this is the product that you want to put out there to the world, and you should feel strongly and you should feel good about putting something out there. The second part of the PRFAQ are the questions themselves, and they sort of help you and your team think about all of the nuances and the gaps that you might have to think through in order to make sure that you are de-risking a potential product build. So there's 2 kinds of FAQs, and I'll talk through them in more detail in the next couple of slides. There's internal FAQs that are more stakeholder focused, and external FAQs that are more focused on the customers. And then lastly, the last piece of the PRFAQ is has an appendix, and it's generally rich with visuals, user flows, and any other supporting materials, whether it's market research summaries or P&Ls or customer anecdotes or voice of the customer studies, etc. So let's go through some of the FAQs. Like I said earlier, FAQs help you vet the idea both from a customer and a stakeholder perspective. It just rounds out your investment theses. It makes sure that your critical thinking and your writing helps you, is good enough, and it helps you get to that next stage, which is the build process. So what are some of the customer FAQs? This is really tilted towards the customer, and really sort of answers the questions from a customer-centric point of view. So for example, what are you launching today for the customer? Why should the customer be excited about a feature X, or why should the customer be excited about a particular service? What is it? What's in it for them? And make sure you answer these questions in a compelling and a crisp format, and make sure you don't embellish anything, because you want to make sure the essence of your offering comes out in terms of solutions and the solutions for your problem sets. Number 3, you can also you'll probably also need to address how your particular product relates to other products in your portfolio, and how it sort of impacts your customer, either from a pricing mix or any other implications. You might also want to address what the top features are, and this might be some of the key selling points for your products. And then number 5, this will probably help the customer think through how they can get started. And this is essentially sort of a call to action on how they want to sign up for your product or how they want to get started with it. The second aspect, and this is this is where the rigor into your thinking really comes to play, is the internal FAQs. The internal FAQs are really sort of the crux where you and your stakeholders and your leadership will need to come together and sort of agree on the customer problem, the size of the opportunity, and the risks involved. And these questions will sort of help you think through all of those from a opportunity perspective, from a success perspective, from a risk mitigation perspective. Here, you can answer key questions such as who is the customer problem, what is the customer problem or opportunity, why do you think the timing is right for the product to be delivered at this particular time? Who are some of the other players in the market? What is the, what might be their response to you launching this particular product? What about some of your existing partners? Maybe there's partners that you work with. Are you going to piss them off by releasing this product? Are you sort of encroaching on their solution space? So you have to think about all of these things when you think about releasing a product. You can also put a sort of a customer-centric hat and say, hey, what do I want my customers saying about my product at dinner? They just signed up for your service for a yearly subscription. What should they say? What do you envision them saying about that? Maybe you release an MVP and you don't have all of the features. So what are some of the things that customers might be disappointed about? How are you going to address that? What are your plans for pricing? How do you measure success? And then if you don't end up hitting those metrics or the baseline, how are you going to try and solve for that? And then lastly, are you making any decisions that's going to lead you through one-way doors? So for example, if you release a bad product and the customer experience is lost, that is it. That's a one-way door. You will not be able to recover from that. Always make sure and decisions that you make are two-way doors so you can back out of it gracefully. So these questions really will drive the success of your product if they're well thought out. So let's go through an example. I found this example on Silicon Valley Product Group. But quite frankly, I think if you just search for Amazon PRFAQ examples or samples in Google, I'm sure you'll find a plethora of examples. But I want to use this example to sort of walk you through what the different, I would say, sections are in the press release. The press release is really the one page that sets the stage for people to either keep reading or stop reading. So the first element, or I should say the first section, is really the heading and the subheading. This really sort of captures the attention of what you're launching today and what the key benefit is underneath. This is followed by your summary. The summary is extremely critical, so make it count. Make sure it's crisp and compelling. And I know I'm using crisp and compelling, these two words, a lot, but this is fundamentally critical for you to make sure you get a good reading and you get good consensus among your stakeholders, but also to make sure that you're building the right products. This will actually allow anybody that reads this to say, okay, with this one paragraph, I get it. I get what the product is. I get what the problem is, and I want to read more. The second section is about the problem and the opportunity. So here, elaborate on what the customer problem is, describe the pain, describe the frustration, but be factual and be compelling. Don't over embellish. If you can have a quote from a customer that actually validates this problem, even better, and that'll make a stronger case. Number 3 is the solution. Describe the solution so that the most important customer benefit is readily apparent. So make sure that your paragraph here is crisp and it's compelling, and it sort of talks through how the solution will bring immediate benefits to the customer. One of the key things that I noticed here in this particular example is that this particular sample of the PR, it misses a crisp, clear paragraph on what this actual Recruiter Suite product does. There's only a customer code, but however, it misses out in sort of expanding on what the product experience is, how easy it is to use, how easy it is to sign up for, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you actually talk a little bit about the product here as well, in addition to maybe an important customer code or a leader code. The fourth part is maybe a code from your leadership that supports your vision for the product. This will help you sort of broadly communicate to your stakeholders and across your organization how your product or your solution will benefit customers, and how it can improve your business's bottom line. The fifth section is probably customer testimonial. Add a customer quote that reinforces the solution. For example, you might have customer advisory board, or you might have friendly customers that you can go to, and you can sort of talk to them openly about the problem and the solution you're proposing, or maybe they've looked at a prototype or use an MVP, and you can use this code to actually better articulate the customer's pain points. And then lastly is your call to action, right? How do you get access to your product? What do you need to do? What do you need to click on? How do you sign up? This all sort of brings to life a very realistic way in terms of getting your product out there in the field. So one of the key elements or artifacts within the PRFAQ is notional P&L. You don't necessarily need to have it, but it sort of gives you more credibility if you think about how you plan on pricing your products and how you think about how your product is going to improve your bottom line. So there's three key ways you sort of break down a P&L. Think about your key pricing elements, how much you want to charge to your users, whether it's on a monthly basis, whether it's on a per user basis, etc. Think about, if there's other ways, other revenue streams in terms of maintenance fees or onboarding fees. Number two, think about your revenue projections. How many clients with potential user bases do you expect to capture in year one, broken down by a quarterly basis? And then you can also use that to also loosely project across year two and year three. And then once you've done that, aggregate and project out the revenues based on the pricing elements that you've sort of determined are going to drive the pricing for your products. Lastly, think about your costs. There's different ways to break down costs. So I've just highlighted a few different buckets here. Think about your engineering costs, your design costs, your support costs, your SG&A costs, SG&A meaning sales and marketing costs, for example. And also think about your tech costs. There might also be other costs such as regulatory, legal, etc. But then think about how you want to project those costs out across the same timelines as the revenues, either it's quarterly or yearly based. And then eventually you can create a table like I've shown here, and you can get to sort of understand, look, what is my gross contribution at the end of the day? And eventually, what is my operating contribution? And this will give you an idea and a really good sort of investment thesis to say, this is a product that I really want to build, and this is a product that I want my team and my organization to rally around. So this brings us to the end. So here are some key takeaways. Number one, I don't think it can be said enough. Always put yourself in your customer's shoes. When in doubt, always go back to your PRFAQ. Look at what your customer problem was. Look at what their needs are. Look at what kind of benefits you can drive for them, and always work backwards. Number two, the PRFAQ the way we write it at Amazon, you don't have to adapt it. You don't have to adopt it exactly the way we do it, but you can utilize some of the facets and the methodology uh, depending on the culture of your organization. So for example, if you're our PowerPoint deck-based culture, you can certainly utilize some of the key elements in a deck and then answer some of these key questions, the FAQs, if you will, and then be able to actually present the same information in a similar manner. The goal is for you to be thorough and well thought out and be critical about what you're building and making sure that you've understood all of the risks. Number three, utilize the PRFAQ to encourage discussion and get consensus. All of the meetings that you might have, all of the brainstorming sessions, the concept sprints, et cetera, that'll all drive you to update your PRFAQ, your document, that quote unquote, the master document. And at the end of the day, these feedback, these inputs from your stakeholders, your peers, your leadership, it's all a good thing, right? Because this will only make a stronger business case. And you will know you've done a good job when the whole team is behind you and they can rally and they can sort of support you in trying to get this product out. And that's that. So good luck, get building. If you have any questions for me, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. And hopefully this was useful and have a great rest of the day.